Hey guys, it's Donnie again. Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a 90-degree New England day. I'm going to try and get majority of the accessories swapped over from motor to motor, get the trans on the other motor, get everything stuffed back into the car and the mounts in, and then we'll work on hooking everything up afterwards. I'm waiting on a couple gaskets that are necessary for me to be able to run the car, mainly the one under the oil filter housing. This motor was a bare block, so it was missing every single accessory, every single bracket, every single piece of hardware. Thankfully, the motor from this car has not been touched, so I have all of that. The other thing I need to do is swap the oil pans. That other one is drilled for a tap for a turbo drain. Anyway, let me get started at least by showing you what I took care of the past couple days while I wasn't recording. So as you can see, I ended up painting the bay that same textured as the rails. I haven't done any of the work yet. I just wanted to get paint down on everything. I will still be replacing this radiator support, but at the end of the day, yesterday, I was fighting a rainstorm. This motor isn't sealed up, so I had to get it in here. So today I gotta pull this thing back out so that we can pull accessories off of this and put them onto this and drop this back into the bay with all the accessories on it. So let's get started. Starters out. I'm gonna work on getting the trans off of this. Of course, spilled fucking oil everywhere. Story of my life. But I'm gonna work on getting the trans out. I should have all of the bell housing bolts loose. I just need to grab my jack, get the jack underneath the trans, and get the motor on that tire right there, and I should be okay to pull the trans. This stuff sucks to do by yourself, but I just got the trans off, pulled the clutch off. Flywheel doesn't look too bad. Probably just Scotch-Brite it all. Clutch disc doesn't look too bad. There's definitely been a couple clutch kicks on it. Yeah. The rest of it looks okay. I'm going to pull the flywheel and then start pulling everything on the intake manifold. So I've got probably 10 years of 240SX knowledge, and I'm about to teach you guys a little hack that might save you some time, save you a little bit of money, save you some headaches. EGR delete. Very common on these cars. A lot of people say go get a block off plate. You don't need a block off plate. Let me show you exactly what to do. It costs almost nothing. So what you need to do is pull this nut right here off of the EGR from here. So what that'll allow you to do is actually cap this off, and I'm going to show you with what, using this nut and something you probably have in your pocket right now. 10 cents. So like I said, 10 years of 240 knowledge gets you here. Nickel in. Come on, get in there. Nickel in, and if you want, you can put a little bit of gasket sealer around that. That's literally it. 10 cent EGR delete. And the reason I do 2 nickels is that 9 times out of 10, 1 nickel will not thread on completely. You can see I've got some rusty threads back there. So I bet you 1 nickel I wouldn't have been able to tighten it enough for it to be airtight. So as for the header side, Z1 Motorsports sells a plug kit, which is a tapered NPT plug that plugs up the holes on the exhaust side. However, I'm going to be looking for a 4-to-1 header, and if I have to buy one new, that means I have to buy one new, but I'm going to be personally looking for a 4-to-1 header, so for now, I'm just going to pinch those tubes shut and just put some weld on them to hopefully seal them enough to be able to drive the car before I get a header. I've pulled every bolt on the intake manifold. I've pulled the alternator and the alternator bracket. So now, aside from the coolant hoses underneath this manifold, I'm going to be ready to pull it off. So let me pull it back real quick, and we'll take a look at the coolant hoses underneath. So with the manifold off, you can see you have this connector here. You have the coolant hose back here, which goes to the heater core, which you can pull, or, well, you can pull and put onto the new motor. I have this one down here, where my index finger is, and then this one over here, and that should be it, aside from this little guy down here that you can't really see. Yep, right here. So that one's just got to come off of that little rail, and we should be ready to pull this intake manifold completely off. We'll get ready and we'll clean up the gasket, we'll clean up the surface on the other motor, we'll pull the other motor, get this intake manifold on it, and start fully dressing it. So just like that, we have the intake manifold off. Here it is. Pulling it off complete is way easier than pulling it off in 2 pieces, in my opinion. At least going back on, it's way easier. This head is actually pretty clean. If you look over here, no rust, no nothing. I mean, you could tell something was probably living in it for a little while. But I still need to pull all of this stuff, this alternator bracket right here, and then pull that motor, get ready to dress it. I'm going to steal this water pump, and the fan, and this oil filter housing. I'm waiting on this gasket right here that goes in between these two. It's my last piece of the puzzle, and I'm kind of willing to maybe try and get that off in one piece since it's soaked in oil, and then just RTV the side of it so that I can run this thing for now at least. Oh, actually, it doesn't even matter. I need a slave cylinder. Shit. Well, let's get to work. We are finally completely disassembled. Oil pan's the last piece to go. This one's tapped for a turbo drain. I don't have anything to plug it right now, so I'm just going to swap out the pans, I guess. Otherwise, I'm just dressing up this motor now. Intake manifold to go. I got the fan set up. I just put the alternator brackets and belt on. I'm going to do the power steering now with the water pump and fan and everything. And then I'm going to throw on the intake manifold. Checked all these hoses out. They seem to be okay. This is the only one that's iffy, but it's not cracked very far. I'm just going to reuse it. I don't feel like going to the hardware store for one single hose. But, so finally, we are completely broken down. The only thing we have to go, good old oil pan. Just got to drain the oil, and then just that one heater hose. I'm going to strip this down of accessories, anything I can keep. I'm going to pull the head off. I'm going to keep the head aside because the head's good, but the block is garbage. We need to put the intake manifold on this motor. I just now did the alternator brackets and everything, oil filter, whatever the fuck this thing is. Everything all here was already done, so I'm just going to throw the fan, pulley, and fan on, the power steering belt, and then we'll get ready to put on this intake manifold. Once we put the intake manifold on, we're going to try and get the trans on, and I hope to have this engine back in this engine bay today for the last time. I want the mounts on. I do have to change the pan because of the turbo drain unless I can find something to plug that for now. But I want to get that engine right there back in this bay for the last time. Upon further inspection, bad KA. Definitely bad. Look at all of the flakes. Look at how big they are. Safe to say this thing was wasted. I gotta clean this pan out. Oil pan swapped. Not much left to dress this thing. Intake manifold, starter, trans. Getting good. So for the past 5 hours, I've been a terrible YouTuber, but a really good worker. Let me show you guys where I'm at. I think I went a little hard. Engine's fully dressed. Fuel lines hooked up. Starting to do vacuum routing. Headers on. Intake manifolds on. Retime the distributor. Praying to God this engine's good. I'm going to leave you guys in suspense. I'm not going to be working on this probably tomorrow. I believe we're getting rain Monday, so I think the next day is going to be Tuesday. I need to get my slave cylinder in. I still need to hook up the drive shaft. I'm going to have to bleed the clutch. We'll put in the harness, and we'll see if this thing fires up. We're back here in another 90-degree morning, and it's time to work on the 240 again. Today we're going to focus on getting the harness into the engine bay, everything plugged in and hooked up, the drive shaft put into the trans and hooked up to the diff, the exhaust put back together. We'll get the front end of the car onto jack stands because tomorrow I will be going to pick up my new slave cylinder as well as a clutch line. So we're not going to be even trying to start the car today. I don't want to bother starting it if I cannot drive it. I do still have the holes in the manifold. They're just crimped shut for now from the EGR and the cold start valve. I don't really know what I'm going to do with those yet. I'm still on the lookout for a header in the New England area. If somebody's got one, eBay 4-to-1, ISR, I don't care. Whatever you got, let me know if you got it. But let's focus on doing all the stuff in the engine bay first. Like I said, I wanted to get the harness in there, the radiator in, the hoses, get everything ready to go so that tomorrow when I go and pick up my clutch line and my slave cylinder, I can just throw those right in 10 minutes, bleed the clutch, and we can try and start her. So this right here is a KA engine harness. This is the side that goes into your ECU and your dash. This 7-pin plug right here is what you use, or 9-pin, whatever it is on a KA, is what you use for swaps to get power from the dash. But if you've never seen one before, this is what it looks like. And it may look confusing to you if you're not into wiring. However, it is way more simple than most other cars. These engine harnesses are dumb, which is great. They don't have many accessories. Obviously, you can tell right here, this goes along the valve cover, all 4 of your injectors, and then it's pretty much plug and play and go from there. There are a couple things I'm going to be leaving disconnected, which is the EGR stuff that goes back here. But anyway, let's get to feeding this harness through, get the dash plug plugged in, the ECU put back in, and then we'll start plugging shit in. Once you get your harness through the firewall there, once you just place the grommet in, the harness pretty much places itself, and that's what's nice about these, is that they are literally dumb. You can see everything is still laid out the direction that it wants to go. This all needs to go underneath the brake lines right here, and then it'll come across the top here and spread out. You can see the back side of that plug has a couple things like the O2 sensor and some other shit, the EGR, the 2 EGR, the O2 sensor, and the ground. So I'm going to get to tucking that around the brake lines, and then the other half of the harness is going to come down here, plug into the big plugs, which would be your 2 swap plugs. Fairly simple, very easy. So let me get to work. We are officially dressed up and in. I haven't bolted down the harness yet, but we are all in. Everything's ran, everything's plugged in. I just have to do the couple hoses that go here for the evap. I have the coil just placed here for now. I don't think I'm going to leave it here, but this is the only spot I knew where it wasn't really going to make much of a difference. But everything's in. And tomorrow, when O'Reilly's emails me that my slave is here, we will take this clutch line out, put a new clutch line in, swap the slave in. We'll be good to go to get a starter. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Had all the fluids in. I spilled the fuck out of oil, but I got all the fluids in and she's ready to start. We pulled the fuel pump fuse because this thing hasn't had oil in it in God knows how long. Fuse on the hood. So I'm going to try and crank some oil pressure in here, and in just a minute we'll try and start her up. Well, everything's hooked back up, fluids are in. Only thing I need now is slave cylinder, bleed the clutch, but wires right up. Just got to hook the exhaust up, do some motor mounts when they get here, but for now, now that I'm pretty much at a standstill until I get my slave cylinder and I can try and drive this thing, we know that it runs, so let's start making it look halfway decent. You can see how much of a difference bashing the radiator support actually made. It's not perfect, nor is this headlight even bolted in yet, but I can make the gaps good enough. Same with this side, not perfect, but I can make it good enough. The hood lines up decent. I've still got plenty of work left to do, but I'd like to get the bash bar on tonight, the fenders on, and the bumper on, I believe. So let's get to work. So O'Reilly's lied to me about my slave cylinder. It won't be here for 2 days. It is what it is. I just got to get a clutch line, so I'm calling this video here. She runs, she starts. I'm on the lookout for a 4-to-1 header in the New England area. If you got one, got leads for one, comment down below, hit me up. I will definitely buy it. But let me show you guys where I'm at now. I put the fenders back on, the bumper back on, the bash bar back on, the skirts back on. It's starting to look like a car. We're still going to be fixing the radiator support, and we're still going to be fixing the quarters, but it's going to be nice to finally get a header on this, a slave on this, get it running and driving, and be able to actually focus on that stuff. So, let me show you guys where we're at. I did the little sleepy eyes mod, but it's starting to look like a car. For $3,000, it's starting to look pretty damn good. But it's just about time to put a header on this thing and then go get it inspected so we can get her on the road so that we can focus on working on the quarters. So the next thing that we're going to be getting into is definitely working on the quarters, trying to hunt down a set of clean fenders, and focusing on the looks of this car. I appreciate every single one of you guys that's been watching, all the new subs. Thank you. We recently hit 200. I appreciate every single one of you. The motivation is going good for this build. We're going to keep the videos flowing. So anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video, where hopefully we'll be driving this thing and starting to work on the quarters.